I am the one who knocks. A chemistry teacher said that. A man who drove a Pontiac Aztec and made $50,000 a year. That line didn't come from nowhere. A German philosopher wrote its spiritual twin in 1883, and today we're putting the two of them in the same room. Here's what Breaking Bad is actually about. Not drugs, not crime, not Bryan Cranston's incredible acting, though obviously, yes, also that. It's about a man who reads Nietzsche's philosophy by accident, without ever opening the book, and gets every single part of it catastrophically wrong. By the end of this video, you'll never watch Walter White the same way, and you might ask yourself a question you'd rather not answer. Let's go. Walter White before the cancer, high school chemistry teacher. Brilliant, genuinely, objectively, embarrassingly brilliant. He co-founded a company called Gray Matter Technologies, a company that became worth billions. He sold his share for $5,000 because he needed the money. Billions, 5,000. Same story, same man, same regret. If that doesn't make you want to flip a table, I genuinely don't know what to tell you. And then, for 20 years, he just accepted it. Went to work, graded papers, washed his car, lived a life that was technically fine, and quietly, slowly, completely suffocating. Nietzsche had a specific name for people like Walter before the cancer. He called them the last man. The last man is someone who wants only comfort, no fire, no ambition, no risk. He finds his little pleasure for the day, his little pleasure for the night, and blinks. That blink, that small, dead inside, comfortable blink, was Walter White for 20 years. And if we're being honest, it's a lot of us too. On a Tuesday, let's talk about Friedrich Nietzsche, born 1844, Prussia, brilliant, perpetually ill, deeply weird at parties. He had migraines so severe he could barely write. He spent most of his adult life convinced that modern civilization was producing exactly the wrong kind of human beings. Safe, comfortable, mediocre, people who had traded their potential for a pension plan and called it wisdom. His response was the Übermensch, usually translated as Superman or Overman. The Übermensch is not a superhero, not a conqueror, and absolutely, categorically, not what certain very terrible people tried to make it mean in the 1930s. Nietzsche, by the way, would have been furious about that. He literally wrote a book called Beyond Good and Evil and another one called The Antichrist. The man had opinions. The Übermensch is simply this: a person who creates their own values, who looks at the rules society handed them and asks, wait, are these actually my rules, or did I just inherit them and never question them? And if they're not your rules, what are yours? Walter White asked himself that question in a cancer diagnosis office. Most of us never ask it at all. Here's what makes Breaking Bad genuinely fascinating. The show doesn't just reference Nietzsche's philosophy, it runs it as a controlled experiment. 5 seasons, full laboratory conditions. One question: what happens when a man decides to become entirely himself? Consequences be damned. Season 1, Walter, nervous, apologetic, still saying sorry. Season 2, Walter, calculating, strategic, cold. Season 3, Walter, terrifying. Season 4, Walter, running a criminal empire from a car wash. Season 5, Walter, we don't need an adjective anymore. And here's what Vince Gilligan understood: that most people who quote Nietzsche don't. The will to power is not about power over others. Read that again. Nietzsche's central idea, the one that Walter White completely misunderstood, is about mastery over yourself, becoming the fullest version of who you are, not at the expense of other people, in spite of yourself. Walter didn't become the Übermensch. He became the cautionary tale of what happens when someone reads chapter 1 of Nietzsche and skips the rest, which honestly is extremely relatable. I've done that with IKEA instructions. The results were similarly unstable. Here's the uncomfortable part. Most of us have a Walter White question somewhere inside. Not the meth lab. I genuinely cannot stress this enough. But the question, the moment you realize you've been living someone else's version of your life, the career you fell into because it was practical, the version of yourself you perform at family dinners, the dream you decided was irresponsible at 23 and haven't revisited since. Nietzsche would say, loudly, probably in German, that this is the real danger. Not ambition, not fire, not wanting more. The danger is the slow, comfortable extinction of your own potential. The danger is the blink and the antidote. Nietzsche's actual antidote, not Walter White's version, is one question. Am I becoming who I actually am? Not who my parents hoped I'd be, not who my LinkedIn profile says I am, not who I was the last time someone updated their mental image of me. Who am I actually becoming? I think about this more than I'd like to admit. Usually at midnight, reading a 19th century German philosopher, instead of sleeping and then making notes on a YouTube video. Nietzsche would probably approve of this, my sleep doctor would not. Walter White's last honest moment, 5 seasons of lies, manipulation, destruction. And then he looks his wife in the eye and says, I did it for me. I liked it. I was good at it. And I was alive. That's Nietzsche. Right there, unfiltered, undefended, true. The tragedy isn't that Walter said it. The tragedy is that he waited until everything was already destroyed to admit it. Nietzsche's whole project, his entire life's work, was to get people to that honesty before the diagnosis, before the breaking point, before the hat, to look at your life and ask, right now, today, what would it look like if I actually meant it? The scoreboard is not the point. Who you become while playing the game. That's the point. Walter White found out too late. You don't have to. Thus Spoke Zarathustra is in the description. Fair warning, it reads like someone who had 17 espressos and decided to solve the meaning of life before lunch. Dense, brilliant, genuinely uncomfortable. Exactly the kind of book you should read before someone has to diagnose you into living your actual life. And if this video made you think, share it with someone who's been blinking for too long. They'll either thank you or never speak to you again. Both are valid outcomes. Thank you for being here. It genuinely means the world. See you in the next one.